Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mercurial Gems. I'm Jen.
I'm Vi.
And for today's episode, we are going to be diving into the 2025 astrology. We are going into deeper reflections now that we are towards the end of the year, so that in real time we can kind of discuss some of the things that we noticed in the collective, what we notice individually, and as an astrologer, definitely already looking to 2026. And we have covered a few of these topics on this space because what was very interesting about 2025 astrology is that, firstly, it was chaotic. But secondly, we were given like a new energy, and then we were like kind of pulled back to go through all of it again. So it had this sort of whiplash effect. And I think for the collective, watching everybody like see all these big things just occur, like we were given so much information in 2025 in regards to bigger systems, our piece in those bigger systems, and it has been just a big journey. So we wanted to talk it out in astrology terms. So we can start with looking at January.
That feels like a really good way to digest all of this is month to month.
Yeah, month to month. And so looking at January, the first like biggest thing that we had is the North and South node went from being in Aries and Libra to going into Virgo and Pisces. So the North node went into Pisces, the South node went into Virgo. And the North and South node rule like our soul's growth, our soul's evolution. The South node represents like old karma, past lives, things that we're supposed to move past. So we all have our own story of this in our birth chart. Wherever the North and South node is this journey that you're supposed to go on. But as the nodes move through our current sky, we are also being shown a lot of where we need to go as a collective. And so the undertones of this entire year with those nodes was us getting out of that like logical control brain of doing all these things so that it amounted to something. Like Virgo likes to put in energy
and likes to be perfect about it
for an outcome, though. I will put in the work if it's going to be worth my time. And we have not been able to use Virgo energy like that this year.
And then Pisces is like, what is time?
Yeah, Pisces is leaning into trust. It's leaning into letting go. And it's also learning to listen to intuition over the logical brain. So instead of I do this, because that should amount to this, Pisces wants you to let all of that go and goes, no, I'm feeling like this is not right. I'm feeling like this is right. It could be the most wrong thing on paper, but my feelings are what I'm going to go with. And that has felt so bad for me.
For us, everyone's experience is different, but we do have both strong Virgo placements.
Yeah.
And we do not have strong Pisces placements. I have a Pisces placement, but it's like Saturn, which is like it still has the undertones of the earth wanting to do things responsibly and structured and with outcome.
Mm-hmm. And what I have seen is because like we were kind of promised if we did, the course of going to school, working, that we would then have resources and that we'd be able to use those resources for something. And like, none of that is really paying off for the collective. We are going through like such a big crash of what was told to us that we have all had to lean into just this complete surrender and trust that like, I have to go with what I feel and I can't keep pushing past all of my limits and fighting so hard to keep controlling something that is not feeling good. It's feeling so bad. And I think there's been this kind of bigger spiritual awakening that I've seen through 2025 where more people are waking up to the problems within the the system as is and how we spend our energy reserves and what we put those in. So I've seen a lot more surrender into trust, and I just don't think we've had anything to really grip onto. And so there's been nothing you can do but float. We call it like just floating on the lazy river. That is what Pisces has felt like, is just sitting back and watching.
I also want to just like put an addendum, especially for the millennials, when it comes to like things feeling like different from what they are, because we have that split between, we remember what it was, and growing up we were told like, oh, if you do XYZ it'll work. I don't know if Pluto Sag has ever really felt that as much. So definitely millennials before might be feeling this a little heavier.
Yeah. Well, it also, I feel like, yeah, the younger group has had to surrender to this a lot more. Like, just.
I think they've always known it's fake. They're like,
Yeah.
the math is just not mathed for them from the start. So,
yeah. So that was kind of the biggest thing in January. And I definitely remember that energy starting off. And then we move into February. We were definitely given just like the first pieces of integrating in that Pisces like adjustment energy. That is kind of the biggest thing.
I feel like that North Node conjunction with with Neptune was pretty intense too.
Yeah. So you have to understand that what we've dealt with in 2025 has also been like the final degrees of Pisces. So when you look at Pisces, it's the final sign of the zodiac, and Aries is the first sign. So whenever a planet in your birth chart or in the sky is at that like 28th and 29th degree of a sign, it's already big because it's going to hold like a higher wisdom and a higher push to really understand something in a deeper way. And because it's been in the final sign of the zodiac, we've been closing out these really big chapters. So I think towards the end of or towards the beginning of 2025, we were already being shown this deeper understanding that there's been some delusions that we have just been taking in and not like doing anything about. I think Pisces has sort of a daydream energy about it. And as we're shifting from these last degrees of Pisces into Aries, Aries takes action on things. So we have had to understand like the weight of being in a daydream, like some of the things that we want to stay conscious of, and yet also understanding that there is a bigger universal picture than what we can see. There's a different perspective to lean into.
Yeah.
And that's not only just been for our own individual stories, it's been for our piece in the bigger collective, which is always what I believe astrology is about. So yeah, we had a few conjunctions with that North Node, and then going into March. Yeah, it's just so crazy how much Aries and Pisces like whiplash we have had. That just continued it. But here was the biggest thing in March 30th. So if you even want to pull up pictures or journal entries, if you journal, we had Neptune, which has been in Pisces since I think it's 2012. It's been there a long time.
Sorry. Of course it was 2012.
Yeah, I actually have that. Let's see. I can get those exact dates.
Neptune. Pisces.
So it has
2011.
2011. So even
no,
earlier.
but it's like actual like entering and staying was 2012.
Yeah, we got a little blurb in 2011 and then 2012. So long transit of Neptune and Pisces, but in the end of March in 2025, we had it go into Aries for the first time. And so all of that, the Neptune kind of rules the collective dream. I honestly feel, and I've shared this theory before, Pisces is like a sponge energy, right? I don't even think Pisces responds to anything going on in this 3D reality that we can perceive, Pisces is the undertone of everything. So I honestly feel like if Pisces is crashing out, something energetically is not right. When Pisces is doing good, the energy is really good. And I do feel like we had kind of an understanding that the collective sum of where we are at as a humanity, it wasn't feeling very good. Then we had Neptune go into Aries, which is like, let's take collective action to change what this collective dream is. Neptune rules the collective dream. And so when it goes into Aries, we need to take action towards something. I think that Pisces energy was like a mystical sort of daydream. And we are seeing now the delusions of religion structures, the delusions of political structures, the delusions
which have become both one and the same.
Yeah, and just how like we're done with there being harm to, you know, some people are in, some people are out. It just doesn't work anymore. We want those cycles to end. And when Neptune went into Aries, I really started feeling like a greater sense of fighting for justice and the need for it to be different. Like I feel like we got a lot of stories and truths that we didn't know as we were in those final degrees of Pisces. And then that Neptune Aries energy was just really palpable. I remember feeling it very strongly at that time. We move into April, and yeah, we had just continuous things going into that North Node and Pisces. So it was still just continued like illuminations of these bigger truths. And then in May, we had, so not only did Neptune bounce from Pisces into Aries, but then Saturn, for those who have been dealing with their Saturn returns the last 2.5 years, Saturn went from Pisces into Aries and started giving the Saturn Pisces people a break after all.
And it felt glorious. For 6 months, I was a human that could not be stopped.
Yeah. So May 24th was when Saturn went into Aries, and we started just the forward momentum of building ourselves up, of feeling who we were, how we want to assert our will, what we want to fight for, what we want to be passionate about, looking at the ways we've kind of held ourselves back. And I think what Saturn and Pisces was really about was a lot of endings. Pisces rules the endings, being that last sign. I think especially watching really close loved ones go through their Saturn return in Pisces, like it was a lot of endings. And then also, I think you guys had to really understand how to like pull self from others, hold different boundaries than what you had before. It was looking at a lot of your relationships and how they energetically impact you. I've just seen a lot of shifts, and also how to like own your creative, spiritual, more mystical side of yourself. I watch all my Saturn return people get so much more stronger in their like knowing and your intuition.
Because like we didn't have Pisces Saturn just like very lovingly and politely Saturn beating the crap out of us. We were like, oh, I was a person before all this.
Yeah, you guys had a lot of emotional shedding. And usually, like up until your first Saturn return, a lot of things are karma, and then it's a big release after that. Like that makes a lot of sense. But for even someone who doesn't have Pisces placements, the Saturn Pisces 2.5 years was hitting my 7th house, and I went through so many death cycles within relationships. I went through so many endings. I purged so many feelings, like so many things shifted for my world. So look at the Pisces area of life, and especially Neptune's been there, as we said, since 2012, but look at the last 2.5 years as Saturn was also coming in there. And as Neptune's getting to the end, Saturn came in, and then like, it was like this big closeout towards the like grand finale of that. But it wasn't going to be completely over, because as Saturn entered into Aries, we got this little blast in the summer where I think things started to feel tangible again, like you could put some effort forward.
New cycles, the newness was there. We finished the ending part, allegedly.
And we got a little taste.
And then we got to like taste test what that karmic clearing for all of us, whether you have strong Pisces or not, what that would look like.
And then Jupiter entered Cancer. So it had been in Gemini and entered into Cancer. And honestly, at first, that wasn't like the most palpable shift, but Jupiter is such an expansive planet and it really brings like a lot more energy to that space. So starting in the summer, there might have been a stronger emphasis on family, memories, maybe even ancestral stuff, like your connection to the people of like your earlier life and childhood might have come into some themes. Like what you actually call family might have come in. We went to our hometown in Florida, like
Literally.
not far after, and definitely had to face some of our upbringing.
It was the next day.
Yeah.
We went the next day. And I hadn't been home in 4 years.
Yeah. And we definitely like went through some big emotional processing within that, but
especially the family closeout stuff.
Jupiter does move signs, like it doesn't stay in for super long. It's about
like
a year
and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half of time. And so it wasn't anything really crazy, but with all the other emotional stuff coming up, it definitely amplified. And then we go into July, and this was a really, really big transit as well. So the outer planets are Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, and then Saturn is considered, it's like a 2.5 year cycle, but those three in particular move really slow. And so we had not only Saturn move and Neptune move, Pluto moved like towards the very beginning or very end of 2024. But starting July, we had Uranus move from Taurus into Gemini. So since 2012, we've also had Uranus in Taurus. Uranus holds the energy of rebellion, individuality, breaking out of constructs, being a weirdo, being eccentric, like not caring about the rules and regulations in place. So it holds like just strong rebellion energy. And as it's moved through Taurus, we've crashed structures. We've crashed what money means to all of us. I feel like there has been so many like unique ways to make money, understanding that we might have to do things a little bit different than what we once did. I also think that Taurus typically doesn't like change. If you have strong Taurus in your birth chart, Uranus has been going through and breaking you out of being stuck. I don't have Taurus placements, and this energy for me still created so much change. So wherever you have Taurus, really look at how much shifted. We were looking at this via pictures yesterday. Mine is in my house of spirituality, beliefs, that 9th house. I literally had to break through so much religion trauma. Like you can see my awakening and how rapid it went with Uranus's like energy, like so loud. The before and after picture is just, and you know, it's a long period of time, but like, oh my God, I'm in such a different place. And I also stepped into being a teacher, which is so 9th house core too.
For me, Taurus is my 6th house, and I have both my South Node and my Venus there. And at the very beginning of it, I was like, honestly, like kind of a fitness girly, like a Fitstagram girly, if you will. And I like obsessively not only worked at a gym, but then in my in-between hours, like I was basically there open to close, because if I wasn't working, I was working out. And it was very unhealthy, like, and it came from a like deep-rooted place of like shame and guilt and like self-hatred. The end of this cycle and it closing out, I like had stopped working out for a while because I was like, wow, I do this in the like most unhealthy way possible. So I just kind of clean slated it. And I slowly started to reapproach my health through a lens of like self-love and doing it because it's like for the betterment of my body, not because like I hate my body, but because I love it, and it's like the vessel that carries me through life. And now I'm a yoga teacher, and now I had been dabbling with plant-based probably since Uranus went into Taurus, but I'm like fully plant-based. I found a family that understands my plant-based. I don't have to like be like weirdly shamed about wanting vegetables. Yeah, it just a lot of stuff.
You're a yoga teacher now.
Also,
yeah.
with it being my Venus house, I definitely, as Uranus went past my Venus line, like I have fully owned who I am as a person, and I don't play straight anymore, and all that stuff.
You broke free of so many patterns. So that has been Uranus and Taurus, and it in July went into Gemini for the first time. Now, it wasn't going to be permanent, but we are going to have a really long transit of Uranus in Gemini, and getting a little taste of that already felt like just a lot of people speaking up, using their voice. I think like being able to use the resource of technology has been really beautiful, but I also feel like we really felt that initial pull of like, we're gonna have to use our local community to talk to each other, because we also started seeing the increase of AI and how it's really hard to tell like who what is being like, what is real, what is not real, how algorithms are controlling our communication and what we know and what we're shown and how we see things. So I even feel like the first initial wave of that, we started like really craving local talks and like we started a meetup group to start actually talking about things that we could do for our community, prepping for future voting and the things that are happening.
Really
like
into community hard.
We really felt that energy really loud. So look at where Taurus is and that Gemini, and like look at that little line in your birth chart. And then as we move into August, we didn't really have anything super new. It's still kind of the same energy coming in together. The Cancer might have turned up a little louder with Venus touching it.
That's when everything started retrograding, which I don't think is really on here, but the retrogrades of those outer planets that all have shifted up until this point of the video started their retrograde cycle of the year. So that's where we get into like September is really where the first actual shift happens.
Yeah, so starting in September, we had Saturn that had been in Aries for the summer for that little bit of time go back into Pisces. So whatever chapters, like that forward momentum where we were like, finally, I feel like hope and future towards what I'm building. We have more endings to review. So it went back. I remember crying so hard in September.
Yeah. Every time a planet shifts, especially Saturn, I'm realizing, it feels like vertigo, energetic vertigo, truly. And I think if not one, but both of us end up just like down and out for like 24 hours max.
Well, minimum. What also was so interesting with Saturn going back is we also went into eclipse season. So eclipse season always happens towards the beginning of the year and towards like the fall period of the year. But the eclipses were going to be with the Virgo and Pisces nodes. So we had our first total lunar eclipse in September in Pisces. And eclipses are like rabbit hole tunnels. It's like Alice falling through the rabbit hole, and you end up in another reality on the other side. Eclipses, when you look at them in retrospect, you cannot feel it as it's happening, but you can so see it in retrospect. And eclipses really shift a lot, and it gets a lot.
I don't know. I feel something. I don't like how you said that, actually, because I remember this eclipse season and I felt so gobsmacked. And maybe this is because my natal Saturn was with the eclipses this time, so like that could have like added to it. But like this past September during eclipse season, me and my best friend, who's also a Saturn return Pisces, I remember us talking and being like, this isn't like what we're seeing, like it's just a greater picture to the whole, like this isn't it isn't as personal as it feels, but it is very personal at the same
I definitely
time.
wasn't meaning you won't feel it. I'm just saying that, like, it's like looking out a window while the car is going, 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You just are seeing passing things. You can't even get a grip on what is happening.
But then the car stops and you're like, oh, this is
where I am. Like,
Okay,
it's really hard to actually see what is going on. Eclipses just move you really fast, and only in retrospect do you see like your before and after points. So that started. We had a lunar eclipse, and then we also had a solar eclipse in September. So reflect on your September. Loudly. And then in October, Neptune went back into Pisces as well. So all of a sudden we had to go back into those final chapters of the collective vision. And I think what was wild was we had these giant protests for the world we wanted to see. And then, like, as it went back into Pisces, I think we all then felt the emotion and weight of all of the things that had happened, and it just felt like just big collective grief. Like, I just felt so much grief that, like, oh my gosh, like I think we'll hold that grief for the wholeness of our life, to always know what we are doing and why we are doing it. I think when a pain gets loud enough as a memory, you will always, like, you can't forget once you know, right? And like, oh my gosh, I just so felt this. Like, it was a big awakening to something that I just don't think we could ever forget. So it's going to remind us as we move back forward in 2026 that, like, okay, this is real. It doesn't even matter if I can see it on my social media, like online, like
it's still happening.
We will not forget what we've seen. And I think that is really important. I think it's important to not forget 2025.
I hope you took a lot of pictures.
Yeah, pictures help us. So we're in the final couple months. So looking at our November, we had Uranus, then the final planet that had moved backwards one more time. It went back into Taurus and was closing out some more chapters of Taurus, which, looking at still like the financial, the structures, like Taurus is an earthy sign. It's our systems. We're rebelling against the systems that were in place.
We had the longest government shutdown in U.S. history.
Right, in the final degrees. So that all, makes just so much sense. And then towards this like middle chunk of November, looking around the holiday season, we had a Mercury retrograde. It started in Sagittarius, went into Scorpio. Mercury retrogrades happen about 3 times a year. And I just think this retrograde was more significant in the fact that we have all this like water trine that had been coming up between all of the water signs. So Pisces and Scorpio, and then that Jupiter in Cancer, we are like grieving this big emotional wave of just everything. And the Mercury retrograde, I feel like, pulled a lot of those emotions that had been kind of repressed down and got a lot of them out. I started like feeling like I could just tell everyone was emotionally processing a lot more, and we were releasing bigger emotional cycles.
Bonus points for the history books. While all of this grand trine, water trine is happening, we have a comet, Third Eye Atlas, going right, like just kind of orbiting right in between all of that trine. So, and they're still not sure exactly what it is, but it is producing a frequency that I think is amplifying what is the grand trine it is in the middle of.
Yeah, it's been so interesting being a part of spiritual community and hearing people talk about just these little other things and what we like can intuitively know, like, and then what we can like hear and see. It was funny that NASA actually commented on this thing and like was responding to it, and just like there's there is so much like puzzle piece in all of it, but I do feel like as a collective, once again, like feeling just the end of giant cycles and what the impact of that was. Very big connections. The Mercury retrograde was definitely connected to this grand trine that we had been experiencing with all of the water. It
started in Sagittarius and then ended in Scorpio. So
and then in our final months of December, we have just a couple squares, but I will say that 2025 as a whole, I would really reflect on the Taurus area of your chart, write down all of the things that have happened since 2012 that have to do with your comforts, your security, your relationship to change. I would also really look at the Pisces area of your life and really reflect on all of the big endings that have come up, the emotions that have come up, especially in the last 2.5 years. But also looking at your spiritual connection, your journey to the spiritual like side, and your trust in the intuition side of yourself, because that also is going to hold weight. So looking at 2026, we have the North and South Node Virgo and Pisces until the summer of 2026. We have Saturn going into Aries direct in February, and then that will no longer retrograde back. Uranus is going to go into Gemini in April and no longer retrograde back. And Neptune is already back in Aries.
Neptune's not already back in Aries.
Not yet.
No.
January, it'll be going direct and then never going back again. So we will finally get these beginning things, but I think in your reflection of 2025, it's just important to hold this down. Like, remember the history of what we learned. Remember your piece in this puzzle, because we're all going to need to stay like woken up to this stuff that came out of a really hard year, that we can hold like some like compassion and grace for ourselves for what we've been through and what is to come.
And then once you're done with your reflection, share it with the astrologer you love so they can dissect it via your chart. Thank you.
Yeah, right. And let us know like how this reflection has felt, some of the things that you've even noticed. And I always think of it as like we're little historians just writing just the language of the universe down, sharing what it's meant to us, and holding just like deeper patterns of what goes on, and being able to pull out the wisdom from it is always found in just our own stories. So we love our storytelling side.
Yeah.
If you ever want a reading to delve into your own astrology, you can definitely look below. We would love to help unpack that for you. We will be back with new episodes every Thursday. So we will see you next time. Thank you for being here. Bye.